On Friday, Governor Walker announced suddenly that he was refusing to negotiate with anybody who worked for the state. No negotiations. Instead, he would direct the Republican-controlled legislature to pass by fiat this week his new budget that goes after the benefits and bargaining rights of people who work for the state. So not only would he not negotiate with people on this, he will never negotiate with them again. He will remove their right to collectively bargain, in essence. While shocked by the radicalness of his proposal and by how fast he is trying to jam it through, state workers in Wisconsin prove that they are not going to take this lying down. Look at this. An estimated 30,000 people protested in the state capital of Madison today. 30,000 people. That's double the number of people who turned out yesterday in Madison. You know the protests we've been covering in Bahrain and all these places today? Their turnout in Wisconsin's capital today seemed to equal the turnout in Bahrain's capital city. Everybody's wondering if that uprising is going to overthrow that government. We'll have more on that later in the show, but we've got 30,000 people, the same number of people, in Madison, Wisconsin. The AP describing the protest as larger and more sustained than any in Madison in decades. The floor of the rotunda in the State House was filled with sleeping bags last night because demonstrators would not go home. A public hearing to take public testimony on what the governor was trying to do in Wisconsin was in hour 17 when Republican lawmakers tried to end it. They decided they had heard enough. That was at 3 in the morning. Democrats kept the hearing going, taking a short break only at 8:30 a.m. so they could move to another room. And then they started the hearing right back up again. The state's second largest school district in Madison today had no school because teachers and staff called in sick and went to the state capitol to protest. Because of organizing by people who cash paychecks rather than sign paychecks, because of organizing by employees, by people who work for the company, not the people who own the company. That's how we got laws against child labor in this country. That's how we got a minimum wage. That's how we got the 40-hour work week and weekends. You like those? That's why we have sick days. That's why there is such a thing as overtime. These things were all hard fought by the labor movement. Their insistence over generations that working full time in America should earn you a living, should get you out of poverty. That over time is what created the American middle class. And you can't understand today's modern politics. Stuff seems like inexplicable mistakes by somebody like the Speaker of the House who ought to know better. You can't understand today's modern conservative politics without understanding that Republicans and the modern conservative movement are against the thing that made it possible for America to have a middle class.
There is chaos all around the globe, pockets of instability. It is caused by unions.
Public employee unions are not going to be able to have the same ridiculous benefits that they have had in the past.
Union teachers battling cuts. They say they're fighting for the kids, but are they really fighting to help themselves?
Maybe it's time they get out of the train business and find something else like paying off some of our debt as a solution here instead of their teacher union, labor union friends all the time.
Unionizing the TSA, while potentially disastrous for the country, is going to be great for the unions. You see, you pay the screener, they pay the union. I wonder how much of that money will be spent in America and how much will be spent overseas organizing revolutions.
Up next in our Union Watch, we give out our very first Follow the Money Giver Award to the governor of Wisconsin, who threatens to call out the National Guard if the unions revolt against his latest plan.
If you do not consume this stuff from right-wing media regularly, it may be a surprise to hear it, but it is sort of the only way to understand why the newest crop of ambitious Republican leaders are trying to advance themselves, advance their own careers by kicking teachers and toll takers and firefighters and cops, kicking them in the teeth whenever they have the opportunity. Wisconsin public employees are showing us that they are very capable of standing up for themselves. That's why we've seen these incredible scenes in Madison these last 2 days. But who is standing up for them? Who stands up for them? I mean, the right is unified against them. Do we want to go back to the era where there were no child labor laws, no weekends? Do we want to do that as a country? Who stands with them? Who stands with these folks when they are attacked like this? Kids do, it turns out. This is footage of students from Memorial High, who along with students from East Madison High School and West High School and Middleton High School all took off from school today and went to the state capitol to support their teachers. Here are the firefighters of Wisconsin supporting the other public workers who are getting kicked in the teeth today in Wisconsin. Why is it important that these firefighters are out there? Because the only three unions that supported the Republican governor of Wisconsin in the last election were the firefighters and the cops and the state troopers, okay? Miraculously, those are the only three unions that Governor Scott Walker is not stripping of their rights. So even as this governor tries to divide and conquer different types of employees who work in the public sector, they are standing together. But what about the Democratic Party? Is the Democratic Party taking the other side of this? The Democratic Party just last month decided they are doing next year's Democratic National Convention in Charlotte, a city without union hotels. Democrats campaigned in 2008 saying they'd prioritize legislation, remember card check, that would make it easier for people to join unions. Democrats have essentially dropped that off the agenda in Washington. If you go back to the Eisenhower-era Republican Party, they were not against unions. From the Republican Party platform of 1956, quote, "The protection of the right of workers to organize into unions and to bargain collectively is the firm and permanent policy of the Eisenhower administration." The Republican Party was not always hostile to people who work for a living. But over time, the conservative movement pushed the Republican Party into becoming really virulently anti-union. That's why Ronald Reagan breaking the air traffic controllers union was the shot heard round the world, because that was the roar of conservative movement politics becoming Republican politics. Since then, though, they've got the Republicans 100% on board, waging self-righteous war on unions, self-righteous war on the rights of people who cash paychecks instead of those who sign them. Where is the counterbalance to that? Where is the liberal movement in the United States that is pulling the Democrats to take the other side of this fight now that the conservatives are unified against working people in this way? Where is the liberal movement to take the other side of this and stand up for people who work for a living? When you look at these people in Wisconsin today, who's got their back? Russ Feingold was Wisconsin's senator for 18 years. He has just formed a new progressive organization to try to change the imbalance of corporate power in American politics. He joins us next.